What scientific experiment would you run if money and ethics weren't an issue? Please consider subscribing if you enjoy the video. Not necessarily a scientific experiment, but a series of experiments to see how you can control nerve sensations from the brain and whether it can create VR that can perfectly mimic the sensation of touch whilst being motionless, as if you're moving and touching something in a virtual world but not in the real world. Is that even possible? I'd study the long-term effects of low G on humans by sending a habitat to the moon, and then sending supplies and volunteers, and I'd send a lunar bulldozer to cover the habitat with regolith because I'm not particularly interested in contaminating my results with radiation exposure. Redesigning the human sinus. I wish to find a way to modify the body to fix that mess of an airway. With Elon Musk's Neuralink thing, the first thing I thought of was an unethical experiment. If you attached a whole bunch of wires to the speech center and audio center of the brain of a bunch of children, and network them together. I wonder what kind of language they would develop and how they would communicate with what is essentially telepathy. Have a baby human raised by apes, basically to see if Tarzan scenario would occur and the human is able to communicate fully with the apes. Force compliance on specific diets with a diverse sample of people and a well-regulated control group. Follow for 10+ years. Is veganism really healthy? How about paleo? Should we never be eating gluten or dairy? Oh man, I love this question. There are a ton of engineering experiments that I'd love to run if they weren't both 1. Illegal, 2. Insanely expensive, 3. Non-zero possibility of death and destruction. Iron fertilization, basically dumping tons of iron dust into the ocean to cause an algae bloom, which should sequester a bunch of carbon and help mitigate global warming. Cloud seeding, space mirrors, dropping a nuke into a volcano, you know, normal stuff. How would the world react to a mountain of 100 billion pennies for free in the middle of a major area? The Gilligan's Island experiment. Shipwreck 100 people with vastly different backgrounds, wealth disparity, and personalities on a remote island. See what kind of civilization grows from it, then do it 50 more times to check results against each other. I've always wanted to try to breed a winter blooming rose. Ethics are fine, but the cost of having that many roses in a hothouse and the decades of selective breeding most likely required to accomplish it would cost an astronomical amount, so I'm sticking with it. Dinosaur cloning. What else is there to do? See if a monkey tribe could become dominant over the rest by training them to make and use weapons and other primitive technology. Also interested in seeing if they would take their newfound knowledge and begin to expand an empire. I'd want to see what a society of children would do on their own if they were alone from birth. Of course, adjustments would have to be made for when they were infants, but beyond that, how would they develop language, ethics, mythology, culture, and as they got older, how would they handle coming of age without adult role models? Though unethical, I think an experiment like that would answer a lot of questions about sociology, psychology, anthropology, and philosophy. It would be like watching the beginning of human society from scratch, with no external influence. Genetic altering of humans. I don't currently have an issue with anyone that wants to do it on themselves. However, to do it to an embryo or through the parent's DNA to see what we could do to advance humans would be amazing. Alterations to intelligence, memory, physical attributes, skills to swim underwater, visual alterations to see the full light spectrum and hearing for the full sound spectrum, immunity to all diseases and harmful bacteria, ability to eat almost anything for sustenance. How athletes from different sports react to fight or flight. Even further, would they fight differently than others? Teach a kid the wrong words for everything and see how long it takes for them to adapt. Near-death experiences, and what people see. So basically I'd want to kill a bunch of people then bring them back to life. I'm sure a lot of them wouldn't make it back. I will make 5 subjects of sane and healthy mind placed in a facility with 5 psychopaths. Insane murderers. They will have group activities in a pair of 2 from each group and the activities will be of 2 types. Moral and immoral. Then I will conduct results about how much these activities affect the subjects in both groups. How long a decapitated head stays conscious. All we have are anecdotes that might have been exaggerated. I've always wanted a definitive answer. But you know, ethics. CRISP are the absolute frick out of some kids and make some next level humans that can run stupid fast and jump crazy high, then make the superhuman Olympics and figure out what humans are really capable of. I want to send someone to space without a spacesuit. I've read about everything that can happen. I just want to see it on film. I've actually thought a ton about this. I would put two people through the exact same conditions the entire life. Now I'm not talking just similar scenarios, but everything from the weather inside the womb to the humans they interact with to the wind every day. And I would see if they're the same. Essentially, if humans are born with personalities or if we develop them through little things all our life. Essentially the butterfly effect. To be honest, this probably wouldn't even be possible with infinite money, but it would be cool. Raise a child without ever punishing or rewarding them. Just let them do whatever they want, and then see what happens to their behavior when they age. Have an Olympics where every single athlete is drugged to an insane level. I think it would raise what is possible by today's standards drastically. I'd like to clone several sets of baby Hitlers and see how they grow up in different environments. Some can include, a loving family, the kind that you barf at because they're so perfect, a Jewish family, an artistic family that encourages his talent, an abusive family similar to the one he grew up with, a family of scientists, and finally, the most unethical environment, a family of politicians/all. I would breed and engineer dogs to become more intelligent, until they can understand the concept of I am coming back soon. Don't worry, they deserve it for helping us get this far as a species. I'd run a serial killer contest. First person to successfully kidnap and kill 50 people receives $10 million 1 year after the last kill, if they are not caught by authorities and if they can prove the killings. How many persons would undertake this? How many victims would there be? I'd train gorillas in weightlifting, really see how tanked they can get, boost them with steroids along the way. After that, I take my army of beasts, pump them full of cocaine, and let them loose in an empty shopping mall. Wanna see which stores they like and which ones they don't? You know, for science and shit. Iron Man suit. Ethics don't even need to be ignored. I just really want a complete Iron Man suit with all the weapons, flight and FRIDAY. I've always been really curious what the results of the Holocaust twin experiments would be if they were run by a sane person. If I didn't have to worry about the fact that I was slaughtering a bunch of children, which very much goes against my morals, I'd recreate those. Put 100 babies from different countries on an island with a bunch of mute caretakers, then see what their language would sound like. Throw two groups of toddlers, one boys and the other girls, onto separate islands, provide them food via robots and not teach them anything regarding gender, sexuality, race, language, etc., and see how they develop and never mention in them the opposite sex and have them be racially diverse too. It would answer so many questions regarding psychology. That is sexual orientation a product of nature or nurture? Are humans born with innate gender roles? Are humans naturally tribal and / or xenophobic, etc.? Honestly, I'd like to see to what degree humans could be bred for certain traits, sheer size and strength. Being small and agile, think of the massive amount of variety in dog breeds and then transfer that to people. It could even be attempted for crazy stuff like temperament, inclination and instincts. Someone who's got crazy situational awareness because they come from a line of hunters whose lives are in danger at all times versus someone who was bred and raised to be a leader or something. People who grow tons of hair, breed them together versus people with little to none. See what they look like in 200 generations. That, or do whatever's necessary to figure out teleportation, and closed system ecosystems, and weird stuff regarding relativity and time. I'd give varying doses of psilocybin to people suffering from treatment-resistant depression. I'd then use this information to see how their depression symptoms improved. If at all, there's much more to this, but this sums it up nicely. Soft target schools. To see whether a school where people are trained and have guns is safer or less targeted than a school that does not allow firearms. I don't know how it would be done, but someone had mentioned it to me and I've always wondered how you would test it. Oh, this is one that I have thought of extensively. The one key, however, is that in addition to a lack of ethics and infinite money, it would also require a few technologies to advance further than they have. Solve the age-old question of nature versus nurture. It would require a large number of cloned infants, of at least 20 gene lines. Each gene line would have half of the clones raised as recommended by the leading child care experts of the time. The other half would be raised in a way designed to create individuals with as many negative personality traits as possible. In order to ensure all clones were raised identically, their care and human interactions would be done by human facsimile robots, controlled via advanced AI able to deal with unexpected situations on the fly. Doing this is pretty much the only way that question could be solved, but I hope no one does. What would happen if you stuck a group of sterile narcissists on an island and made them create a society without social media? What would the resulting hierarchy look like? How would they create a social structure? What rules would be dictated by them? How would they act around other people that would manipulate them as well? The effects of marijuana use on people with pre-existing mental conditions/illnesses. I know there has been correlations in the past, but I would like some definitive research. A legitimate eugenics experiment not rooted in racism and actually rooted in breeding superior humans. I'd use CRISPR and all kinds of gene doping techniques. After all the poo-hoo-hooing is done, humanity will thank me for solving modern healthcare problems through genomic manipulation and ushering in the next era of human evolution. I'd also use those artificial wombs to mass clone, mass produce, and mass develop genetically modified embryos. I'd simultaneously pump billions into AI research so that the day-to-day responsibilities of running a society would be taken over by intelligent machines, which will free up precious time and energy that will go towards the eugenics cause. How many chicken nuggies I can fit in my stomach before I get kicked out of the McDonald's? Poke around in people's brains and see what I can and can't do from altering the brain. Imagine being able to stop allergies. Please subscribe if you like the video. It really helps the channel to grow. Adios.